Welcome to Multifamily Grit, where we bring in the experts to share the pros and cons and celebrations and struggles of the most important industry in the U.S., multifamily property management. Today, we are chatting with Tracey Crowe, immediate past chair of the board for the Nashville Apartment Association, about the importance of happiness in your personal and professional lives. Tracey's passion for the brand ignited a friendship between us very early on in my career, and since then, she has taught and entertained me throughout my multifamily career. And before we get started, we are sponsored by Fortress OS, the only core property management operating system built with an emphasis for today's affordable operators. Ready for your applicants, leasing agents, and compliance team to love the software they work in and the job they do every day? If you like what you hear today, please like and subscribe. Tracey, thank you so much for being here. It's been way too long. And before we dig in, I'd love for you to take a second to just share how you got your start in the industry.
I got my start in the industry. I was actually a K-3 teacher, taught computers.
Yeah.
And the grant ran out, didn't know what I was going to do. I was living in Bowling Green, Kentucky. And my girlfriend called and said, hey, I got a regional manager that is looking for a leasing consultant. I told her I think you'd be a great person to do that. I'm like, I don't know if I can sell. I don't know. So I got on the phone with Helen Hayes Ehrlichman, the legend. And we had a conversation over the phone, and she hired me over the phone. So I didn't know what I was going to do with my next career plan, but you know what? It's the best ride of my life.
Yeah.
You know, I went from leasing consultant all the way up to regional property manager. So, you know, I have a love, drive, and passion and energy for it. And let's go.
Yeah. Do you remember the first time we met?
Yes, I do.
Oh.
I do.
Oh,
the first
tell
time
me
we
about
met
it.
was at the time Verse on Bell.
Yep.
You and Jenny McClain came in.
Yes.
And y'all came in like the bosses that you are for real. And I was like thanking God that I had a face that I knew, which was Jenny McClain.
Yeah.
And from that moment, and I will say this, it was very organic between me and you. I
Yeah,
felt instantly that I could just say, you know, what it was I was feeling. And I'm like, this is weird. I probably shouldn't say this. You know, I'm probably not going to get a job. But no, it was the best experience because you all came in, you were kind, you were automatically giving, and just wanted to know what I needed. And that was refreshing because most people don't say that. Like, what do you need from me? It's usually like, I need this, I need this, I need that. And you're like, okay, I'm going to go do it. But that was our first interaction, and I knew that, okay, I definitely want to learn from her.
Yeah. Oh, that's so kind. Although I feel the same way about you. What I remember is that you were so open and honest, and I would even say vulnerable about what was and wasn't going well at the site, right? And I feel like so many times instead on site, I would walk in and I would hear all the good things that were happening, and no one really wanted to own up to what they were struggling with. So then you couldn't help, right? Which made my life a lot harder, my job a lot harder if I couldn't actually help. But I remember coming in and you were just so open and honest and vulnerable about what was and wasn't going well so that we could just dig in and get to work together, which I absolutely loved.
Thank you.
Yeah, which is why I've always loved working with you. And you also do it with a touch of humor. So that's been helpful
Hey,
too.
you have to laugh. You know, you have to have fun while you're doing it because it could really get you in a space.
Yes.
And I don't want to be in that space.
Yes, agreed. I love that. You have to love what you're doing. And I think one of the things that has always stood out to me, and I'd love to talk to you about, is your passion for the Apartment Association. So tell us a little bit about how you got started in the Apartment Association and that journey for you.
I got started when I worked for AIMCO, and we went to like a general membership, you know, luncheon thing, and there's always a dynamic speaker that we have.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of drove me to like, okay, you know what? I really think I can make a career out of this, but I didn't know how to navigate that because, you know, when you're at work, we're working. You know, there's really not, you know, a time for trying to find a mentor or trying to continue your education. And that's what the Apartment Association was allowing me to do. Like, I didn't think I was the best assistant manager in terms of collections because I'm a feeler and I'm a person like, oh, can we just wait another 2 days? They say they're going to get it. So I needed structure and I needed to be around people that were going to help me get there. And that's why I fell in love with it because these people are taking time out of their personal lives to mentor and to lead me in the direction where they're going. And I'm like, I want to be that person. I want to be that voice for the voiceless. I want to be able to help in the community and give back. And it just was twofold. It definitely, you know, like I tell people, the Greater Nashville Apartment Association to me is like a university.
Yeah.
You can get the advocacy, you can get the education, you can get the community engagement, and you can honestly take your career wherever you want it to go.
Yeah.
You can go all the way from a leasing consultant to an asset manager, to CEO, and being in good company of those people just made me come alive.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. So what led to you actually moving into a leadership role?
Sometimes, I'm going to be honest with you, I try to be like that introvert and try to be that follower, but people kept pushing me no, you're a natural. Just, and I'm gonna be honest with you, most people think because of my personality that it's easy for me to get in front of people and talk. It wasn't at that time.
Really?
That pushed me to be more of a public speaker, and I didn't know that the words coming out of my mouth had an impact.
Yeah.
And so being around those people, they're like, no, we're going to put you over here. We're going to put you over here. And I just went because I'm like, okay, this is actually making me a better person.
Yeah.
This is actually stretching me to grow and think outside the box and honestly look at the bigger picture instead of the day-to-day like I was doing. I was like 22, starting in the business. And it just came alive for me. And now I just have embodied that. I just want to make sure that we get the right talent, the right people trained and onboarded. And I want to see people have the same story like I'm having now.
Yeah.
And I've been put in places and given opportunities that most people would never have had that. And you gave me that. You did. And for that, I embodied that. I wanted to represent that. And I wanted to make you proud along with everybody else along the way. And now I'm a natural with it. I'm like, okay, what do you need me to do? If I get a phone call, you want to be on the phone podcast? Sure. What time? Let's go.
Yes, I love it. I love it. And speaking of that, something that you and I have chatted a lot about and that I think is really important for both of us is having that level of joy and happiness in your life so that you can say yes and so that you can take on that next challenge. Tell me a little bit about how you think about that, like the importance of happiness, whether that's personally or professionally, and what that means to your success.
Personally, it starts with me.
Yeah.
If I am not 100% Tracey Crowe, how can I expect anybody to benefit, lead, guide if I'm not happy?
Yeah.
And most recently, which is so great in my mind, you know how you have people say, oh, you should go to therapy. Oh, you should go to this little group. And, and I listen to podcasts now that help me find and maintain my happy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're all out there. I promise you. Just Google it. It'll come right up.
Love it. Do you have any you'd recommend?
Oh, my God, no. I'm all over the place with it because, well, I do, but not in this moment. But it's only 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So this morning, to be honest with you, how I find my happy, I have the app. It's a Bible app that gives me a scripture. It only takes like 3 minutes to read it, meditate. And then I also, while I'm showering and get my makeup on this morning, I just hit whatever comes up.
Yeah.
And that helps me find my happy. Yeah. So even if it's folding clothes, I know people don't want to do that. I'm a nerd. Or even if it's like organizing your sock drawer, people don't like to do that. I know I'm weird. But the point is, I have to take time for myself.
Yes.
And I hadn't been. And, I just got caught up in the minutia of everything. And I'm like, okay, let me take a step back. So now I'm recognizing, okay, you're lower energy today. And usually I'm always high energy. And I want to be that way. Like I tell people, I want to look how I feel. So even if I feel like today, if I exude this, I got to come out of whatever I'm in. Yes. And then just being around good people that I know that feed off my energy makes me happy. Yeah. And that's why I like being around people. Yeah. Because I'm like, okay, this person's a little low today. How can I get them up? And it's usually with a joke or, or I do something, trip in the room and it's funny, or something odd to happen. It's just with me. And it just makes it go around. And I believe in laughing at work, especially when you got the biggest budget to do and you're like, okay, he wants us at 1.2 and I don't know how we're going to get that. Yeah. I don't know. But we're going to figure it out together. And that's truly how I do it. And honestly, staying and being around my family makes me happy. Yeah. Like I'm off today because I haven't been home in a week. Yeah. I feel it. So when I feel it, I'm like, okay, I called my mom before I got here. Yeah. And I was like, hey, what you doing? And she's like, oh, I'm sitting here writing a letter to her grandson. He's going to go through his bar mitzvah. So she's writing him a letter. So she's like, when you get done with that podcast, I need you to read me your letter. So it's just that brings me joy.
Yeah.
And that's just it, you know. And then when I feel it, I either take a trip, I either go on some type of little meditation thing so I can bring it back.
Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. Okay, there's so many things that I want to talk about with that. First, you started talking about your prayer app and then meditation and then how you get ready in the morning. And I am a huge believer in having routines, morning routines and nighttime routines.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
I think they can bring you so much calm and stability in
less anxiety.
Yes. In other words, really chaotic world. So I am almost manic about the fact that every morning I have to have like this certain cocoa drink that I have.
Yes.
Certain drinks that I have first thing in the morning. I also meditate, which is something you and I have never spoken about. But I meditate for 20 minutes every morning, and I have my certain drinks, and I have my routine. And if I am not able to do that routine, I feel like it throws my whole day. Yes, my whole day
totally off.
But when I do it, it brings me this like calm and center, which is just so incredible. But I am a huge fan of it. There are a couple of books out there about it. There's a morning book. There's a 5 a.m. club. There's the Magic Morning. Like there's these really cool books about it that talk about how important it is to have that morning routine and how it can really fuel your life, essentially. So I love that.
I'm getting back to that.
Yeah.
You know, you get so caught up even in a routine that you don't realize, oh my God, I didn't do that for myself.
Yeah.
And I had to go through a process of it's okay to take care of you and put you first. And that's so hard for me because I'm a giver, you know, and I don't, you know, I'm just a giver.
Yeah.
One other thing that I created is a room, a meditation workout room.
Oh, I love it.
So I have my Peloton in there, and then I have all of my mats.
Yeah.
And I just go in there, and I have a mirror.
Yeah.
And I sit in front of the mirror, and I meditate, and I look at myself, and I give myself that energy back that I want.
Yes.
And for me, it only takes 10 minutes because I'm regimented because I got to make sure I'm out of the house by 7:55 with the traffic. So, and like I tell people, to be on time is to be early. Yeah. And I pride myself on that, you know, but there's days where you just can't with the traffic. But I think that me implementing that probably since the dark times, COVID, has really helped me find who I am. Yeah. And that's what's really important is when you talk to people, find out who they are. Yeah. And then you can just ride off of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. We, as a society, I think, do not teach mental health awareness early on enough in life. And you said something, I don't even remember. You were talking about like affirmations, like essentially like sitting in front of a mirror and like looking at yourself and creating positivity inside of yourself. So for the parents out there, for any of you who have children who have the Tony boxes, right? Have you heard those little where you put the little figures on top and they sing and stuff like that? So Snoop Dogg has a Tony that you can put on top of this Tony box.
Seen that.
And he does positive affirmations for the kids. So he's like, he sings something. He's like, I control my emotions. And then it like lets the kid like say it back. It's so much fun. So now my 3-year-old is running around the house singing positive affirmations.
I love that.
I know.
That's what you have to instill early.
I know. And it's so funny, but I think about it now and I'm like, I wish so badly I had found that in my life before 35. I didn't find meditation and affirmations and visualization until I was like 35. And I think back and I'm like, now I want to like give that to my children so much, that exact same thing.
Like I had these books sitting around that all the things that you just mentioned, and I didn't have time to get to it. So now I'm so glad about the Audible. Yeah, I can just like do a chapter here, chapter there, and still get fed. Yeah. And that's the major thing is you have to feed your spirit. Yes. That's it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. When you said like, you have to take care of yourself, but it's hard because you're a giver. I am a giver too. I really am. I have in fact, my greatest strengths, like StrengthsFinder, but yet also I think one of my greatest weaknesses is the sense of responsibility that I have. And in a lot of ways, I carry that on to making sure that everyone around me is happy and taken care of. And a huge problem with that is that it's very similar to being on an airplane and the oxygen masks drop. Like you have to put yours on first. So if you don't, then you won't be capable of taking care of those around you, right? And so I I'm working so hard on that as a human to realize that, yes, it is okay. It's actually great that I bear this responsibility where I want everyone around me to be happy and engaged and enjoy life. But if I'm not there, if I don't do that for me first, then I won't do it well for everyone else, nearly as well as I could, or as I think I'm doing. So.
Yeah, I mean, same way I have a hard time saying no.
Yeah.
And that kind of gets me into like, oh my God, I put these things all on my calendar. How am I going to get it done? And that creates anxiety for me, but it's still motivating for me to get it all done.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I have to be okay with saying, Kerri, I'm not going to be able to do that today. And not feel bad about it, because then I'll go back after I said no. I changed my mind. I can get it done. And I realize now, as, I'm coming into my own as womanhood, that it's okay to say no. I'm not going out to dinner Friday night. I just want to hang on the couch.
Yep.
And not feel bad about it. So I'm really working better to say no and not overextend myself as a giver. And that's so hard.
Yes.
And I'm just like, no, this is the way that I am, and I'm not going to change, but I have to prioritize and just say no.
Yes, I agree. Couldn't agree more. I think a lot about like overall how we generate happiness in ourselves. So there's actually a really phenomenal book out there. It's called The Happiness Advantage. And it's actually full of data. It's actually a book full of data and statistics and an analysis of happiness and happiness traits and how people become happy. And so often we all focus on what we need in order to become happy rather than finding the happiness first. And then a lot of the things that we desire or want actually come to fruition from finding that baseline of happiness. And one of the most interesting studies inside of it that I read was actually related to Harvard students. So it talks about how all the students who actually come to Harvard were all in the top 4% of their classes, right? And then all of a sudden they show up at Harvard and 50% of them are in the bottom half. Ooh. And it's like, well,
what happened?
Yeah, right? They all went from being top 4% to now half of them are in the bottom 50% because you're now ranked with just an incredible group of overperformers, right? And one of the studies showed that the students who ended up performing the best once they were at Harvard and kind of adjusted to that life were those that found ways to be happy early on versus those that didn't and instead like secluded themselves and just tried to like grit through it, like work really hard through it, and instead became like isolated and frustrated and unhappy, which led to them not being successful at school, right? Versus those who engaged with those around them and found and created happiness. And those were the ones that really became successful. And so it's so interesting to me how important that happiness is, and yet how much control we actually have over it internally that we don't, and yet we think like, well, if I get an A, I'll be happy. And the answer is no. Like you have to find your happiness first, and then it's so much easier to get an A, right?
Yeah.
And I think that applies to your personal and your professional life.
It does.
So professionally, I think finding that happiness allows you to create the success that that you really want and that you're looking for versus thinking to yourself, if I can only get that next job or that next promotion or that next position or that next raise, then I'll be happy. I really think it's the inverse.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It truly is. And for me, personal and professional, for me, for happiness, it's all one.
Yeah, agreed.
For me.
Agreed.
And, I can't be productive at work if I don't have my happy and have my higher energy. Vice versa, personally.
Yeah.
Okay, so what? The job, it'll be there tomorrow. Wasn't a good day. But for me, the minute I mentally clock out, which that's hard too, I have to go back into my personal and be like, okay, let me figure out what's going to bring me back tomorrow.
Yes.
And that's consciously what I do every day.
Yeah.
I do. And that has really made me happier that I'm more focused on that now. And I feel like I'm a better employee.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, how did you get all this done? Because I'm happy.
Yeah.
I'm happy to do it.
Yes.
I'm happy to get it checked off my list because there's a list every day. And it makes me feel great. And I feel happy when I purposely make a list. I have a list for today, what I need to do.
Yeah.
And I've already checked off 2 things. And that gives me life.
Yes.
Okay. Like, good. I feel like a productive person.
Yes.
And that's totally it. My niece called me this morning. I have her working 2 jobs, guys. She's got to understand the work ethic. And she's working at TJ Maxx and she's working at Big Lots. And she called me this morning. She's like, TT, I just deposited $125 in the account. I said, I know. I already saw it. I said, this really makes me happy. And then that transfers that energy and then she becomes happy. Like you got to give people positive energy if you want positive energy to come back. That's another thing. And you know what? Sometimes you don't get that. I don't expect that. But when I do, it's another elevation for me. You know, it just works. And just to have my 17-year-old call and say, you know, I've made this money, you know, and like I told her, I said, look, you might as well have 2 jobs. We don't have a camp. You're going into your senior year. Yeah. You might as well work to get your car and to pay your insurance. And she's like, what's insurance? So, you know, you got to teach them and raise them up right. Yeah. And like I told her, I said, hey, what color do you have on today? My favorite color, your color, red. Aww. And so that transfers positive energy without even saying it. You know, she's like, I get the best compliments when I wear this color. Wear it all day, every day.
Yes. Yes. Oh, I love it. When you were first starting to talk about her and the happiness and work and your professional life and your personal life, and the fact that your level of happiness really needs to be involved in both of them, right? They both start with your level of happiness. So I was actually signing up yesterday for a new software that I found online. And we needed to make a graphic design. And I was like, I'm going to find something else to use to create this, to draft it. Because a lot of times I feel like when I'm working with my marketing team, I need to actually sketch it out really quickly, but I have no creative skill whatsoever. So shouldn't be allowed to sketch anything. So it's like, let me go somewhere. Let me find some software that just gives me some inspiration that I can just kind of find some things and cut and paste and like clip it. Anyway, this is what I do. And so I found something. And then when I went to log in to create an account with the software, there was a section to put an email in. And right underneath it said, work email, please. Keep your work and life separate. And I was like, well, hold on. Keep my work and life separate?
I don't know how to do that.
What does that even mean? Like, that's, in my opinion, that sounds so, it just sounds so incredulous to me.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
I spend the majority of my life working. If you're telling me to keep my work and my life separate, then you're implying that my life doesn't start until I get off work and my life ends when I start work. Like if you're saying they're two separate things, they're not two separate things. I do have a professional life and I have a personal life and I have a family life and I have a health part of my life. Like I have a lot of different components of my life. Work is absolutely one of them. And for a lot of people, me included, work is one of the top 3 for me. Like it's one of the top 3 most important things in my life. And so to say that they're separate really blew my mind. I'm like, okay, we got to stop this whole work versus life situation.
Like, there's no separation. And for me, I need all of my emails to go to one domain. So I can organize. And I have folders set up so I can look and see, okay, VIP, da-da-da-da. Yeah. Like, we have our own system of how we want work and life. Yeah. And to me, to say, I don't want you to use, I want your work email. Well, what if my work email gets so bogged down that IT finds out you got all your, you know what I mean? Like, I want to keep that separate.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's okay to say, like, use your work email. The problem is saying that your work is separate from your life. Like, it's one thing to say, keep your professional life and your personal life separate. Maybe, although even that seems extremely difficult to me. Like, I mean, you need to be able to come home and talk about what happened at work.
Yes,
like,
I don't know how to turn it off.
I know. Well, it would be, I have children, and you know this, but I like to compare it to my children. It's like, I don't have a child life balance.
No, there's not ever one.
When my children need me, I'm there for them. And when I want to talk about my children when I'm at work, I talk about my children when I'm at work. Like, the two are integrated. And I feel the same way about work and your professional life and your personal life. The two are really integrated. And I think the more that we actually bring those two together and talk about the fact that they're one, and that your internal happiness drives the success of both of those, that it could be really beneficial. I think there's so many especially younger generations right now that are growing up with this whole work-life balance concept. And it's like, okay, you can have a professional life versus personal life or health life or family life balance. You can have but it's all the components of your life being balanced, not work versus life. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, when they say work-life balance, one of the, it's like a teeter-totter.
Yeah.
And then when it goes right here, like, oh, love, great. But it's just a balancing act,
with everything.
With
in your
everything,
life.
personal and work.
Yeah.
And for you to separate and isolate it just, for me, one email, use your work email, I'm like, that blows me away. I was on a website too. I'm like, why? I just want to sign up. I'm like, I don't want to lie and say this is my work email, but let me just create. I need to get in here. Let me create a one that says something at work.
Yeah.
So I could get in. So you're right. You're right. I just don't think those things should be separated.
Yeah. Well, I love so much how important happiness is to you and how we all find that and where it comes from in ourselves. So thank you for sharing all of that. It's been awesome to chat through it. And before we go, I'd love, because girl, I know you must have some of the best stories. In fact, I've heard some of them. I think you have brought me to laughter and tears on multiple occasions. So I'd love for you to share a story or two.
Okay,
with
I'm
our
gonna make it fun
about multifamily.
I'm a fun person.
Let's do it.
I'm not gonna tell you, everyone knows about the raccoons. Yeah, but more importantly, when I first, I think it was. I had 3 assets downtown. They were historic West End, built in 1920s. So we had a boiler system. So one particular night, I lived on site at the other properties. And so the pilot light went out. So no one had heat in the building. And then, of course, just put it this way, I called emergency maintenance. They were like, we'll be there in the morning. I'm like, no, these people are going to be freezing cold and they're going to be rolling on me in the morning. So I go on over there and I go down there in the basement. And, it's dark or whatever. I'm like, okay. So I had my mom, who's worked at Atmos Energy for 45 years, walk me through how to light this pilot light on a boiler system. Cool, I got it. So I'm down there and I hear some tip, tip, tip. So I'm like, oh, man, somebody's dog is out again. Because Miss Pam always had her little chihuahua out all the time. And it's like they knew when I came in the building. So didn't think anything. So I'm over there holding a little light down, getting to light it. And it didn't go. So then I look up and I see these eyes. And I'm like, get on out of here. I'm trying to do something. Get out of here. Didn't move. So I got to looking and it got to running. And I thought it was Pam's dog. It was a big old rat that looked like a dog. So I'm like, okay, they're looking at me like, why are you down here? And I'm like, because we're cold. So I was scared to death. And I'm like, property management, part of the course, par for the course. So I get the thing lit. And let me tell you, I kid you not. It's like being the rat, told everybody else, we got some live meat down here. So all I heard was some more. Girl, was 3 of them chasing me. I got out of there and I called the pest control services and said, y'all got to get here tonight. I said, if anybody gets hurt, wandering down here that shouldn't be down here, I said, from a risk management perspective, we're going to get sued. So next day, and I was so upset about it. I was traumatized. I didn't sleep because I'm like, oh my God, I'm in charge of these buildings. How did I not know this? Gets better. We go back the next day. They're like, oh, no, ma'am, you stay back here. You stay back. I'm like, no, I want to know where they are. I said, I want to study them. I need to. So I stayed up that night and studied rats, guys. And they're alive. They really are a different type of human being. Okay. So we get rid of them. Okay. So no, we put the traps out.
Okay.
These rats are smart. They were able to get in that trap, get that food, and get out and not get caught. So we literally triaged it, got them gone in less than a week, but it was expensive, but it was so worth it. And the thing is, like they said, well, a lot of times you don't know you have them. And it's a 1920s building, so and there's so many corridors and things that people never go in. Like these weren't open to the residents. But the thing is, I made it my mission, and it was great because I literally was chased by rats, and I got up out of there. And I'm gonna tell you right now, they had a little miles per hour on them. Oh, and I'm like, God. I'm moving, like, hey. I'm like Fat Albert moving, and I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. And then, of course, there's always that one resident that sees it all. He said, they ran you too, didn't they? I'm like, why you tell me? He's like, they were here before me. I'm like, you know what? You're right, but please don't put that on a review.
I love it.
I don't need that on a review right now. We're highly occupied.
I didn't want to evict them. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we did evict them. Yeah. I'm like, oh no, you got to pay delay.
I love it. I love it.
Oh, that's my story.
I love it. Your stories, I feel like, could go on forever after all of your time in multifamily. Plenty. So, well, Tracey, thank you so much for being here today and joining us. It was a blast, and I hope it doesn't go this long till the next one. So,
all right.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much.